Good morning, everyone. We have a busy Capitol. We're getting ready to start this press conference, so I'd like to welcome you to being here this morning. I'm State Representative Rosemary Brown. I'm joined by fellow legislators, associations, and unfortunately, families who have lost loved ones due to distracted driving and cell phone use, as we bring attention to Distracted Driving Month and also to House Bill 37. There is no doubt that we have a serious safety issue on our roadways that is affecting innocent people. The statistics prove it, and if you look into the windows of other cars as you pass by, you can see the tremendous amount of drivers texting and looking at their phones rather than at the roadway. I drafted House Bill 37 as a mechanism to protect all drivers to the best of our ability. The legislation aims to get the phone out of the driver's hand, change behaviors, and focus on the road. This legislation is reasonable, meaning you can still talk on the phone, but you must utilize hands-free technology. You can also use your GPS, but it must be in a docking station. The legislation is also realistic, meaning that convenience and technology of cell phones isn't going away. It has become very useful, and removing it from a vehicle, as we can realize, is not realistic. However, we need to make it as safe as possible for all drivers so it doesn't take over the responsibility of actually driving. Lastly, it is enforceable, meaning that our state police who favor this legislation can easily identify drivers who are breaking the law. Only $25 of the $200 fine at this time goes to the ticketing official, working to ensure this is not geared as a revenue generator. The remainder $175 goes to a distracted driving fund used to educate and build safety for overall distracted driving. 17 other states have identified cell phone use as a major road safety issue affecting innocent people, and they have passed laws very similar to House Bill 37. 85% of Americans think that other drivers who talk on the cell phones are a threat to road safety. This legislation is not overreaching. Distracted driving involving cell phone use does not just affect a distracted driver, but every motorist, which is why government needs to make it a priority to be involved. Do you want your child driving on the same roadway as a motorist who continually thrashes about their lane, drifting from side to side while over-correcting into your lane? That happens all the time. That swerving driver may get home fine today, but tomorrow it could be your family in the crosshairs of that vehicle. Our world is changing, and we must adapt to the concerns of modern technology and identify what we can do to help. This is common sense and has proven to reduce overall cell phone use in states once the laws were enacted. At this time, I'd like to introduce several speakers who I think will add to the support for House Bill 37. Our first guest today is House Transportation Majority Chairman, Representative Tim Hennessy.
Thank you, Rosemary. And welcome to all of you here today. I'm pleased to join with Representative Brown to support House Bill 37. This bill passed through our Transportation Committee last session, but we ran out of time and we couldn't get it concluded. This year, our intent is to pass it out earlier in the session so we have time to bring it full circle and hopefully land on the governor's desk for his signature in the not too distant future. Building on April being Safe Driving Month here in Pennsylvania, we hope to use that momentum as we as we take up this bill in our committee at our early meeting sometime in May. We will try to move it. We'll try to get it through, answer the questions that are being asked, and allay some of the concerns that some people have voiced so far, and then we'll voice in the hearings when we have them. But the bottom line is we have to bring some conclusion to this situation in Pennsylvania. The technology that we have available to us today empowers all of us to stay connected, but there are times that you simply have to understand that the message can wait. This ban on handheld phones will hope to drive that message home that sometimes eventually, you have to simply turn off the phone or not use it, especially handheld phones. And this ban is targeted toward the handheld phones. We want to take that urge away from people and understand that they will be punished if they do use a handheld phone. It's dangerous. I know that, as I said, we feel empowered with phones, but children especially feel invulnerable. They know they think that they can handle anything. The distractions are just too great. We really need this bill. We'll move it through the committee as quickly as we can, and hopefully we'll bring it to the governor's desk for his signature. And I congratulate Rosemary Brown for the work that she's done to see if we can bring this to a closure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our next speaker is the House Transportation Minority Chairman, Representative Mike Carroll.
Thanks, Rosemary. Good morning, everyone. When I thought about what to say today, I thought about the fact that the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is seldom at the front of the line when it comes to change. And it brought me to a John F. Kennedy quote: "Change is the law of life, and those who look only to the past or present are certain to miss the future." We have the photos of some here today that will miss that future. My own family has had this experience with the double fatal accident, where members of my family will miss the future. It is imperative that we run this bill to protect those and their futures. It's simply inconceivable to me that we cannot muster the political will to move this to the finish line and get it to the governor's desk to sign it. I applaud Representative Brown for her leadership in this effort, and I look forward to working with Chairman Hennessy to make sure that the House does their part, and we will look to our peers in the Senate to get this bill to the governor's desk. The future of those unknown and unnamed persons in this Commonwealth depend on it. Let's not resist change in this area. Let's embrace the change necessary to adapt to the electronic and the technological moment that we live in. Let's get House Bill 37 to the governor's desk and embrace change and embrace the safety that comes with it. Thank you so much to all of you for being here today.
Now, a few of my colleagues would like to speak. The next legislator will be Representative Todd Stevens.
Thank you, Representative Brown. I wanted to make sure I stopped by to support this very important, critical legislation that will save lives in this Commonwealth. You don't have to look any farther than the front page of the newspaper on a daily basis to see the impact of distracted driving and the impact that folks who are focusing on their cell phones instead of on the roadway in front of them are having across this Commonwealth, and particularly with young drivers. I know Representative Brown mentioned it. Our younger drivers out there on the road today, we need to ensure that they're safe not only from themselves, but from other folks who might be engaged in this distracted driving behavior, focusing on their cell phones instead of focusing on the roadway. You know, this is just basic life-saving legislation that, as Representative Carroll said, we need to get across the finish line. I'm so happy to see both chairmen, bipartisan support from the House Transportation Committee. I look forward as a member of that committee to considering this bill and helping push it forward. This is an evidence-based approach. All our surrounding states have this type of legislation, and it's time Pennsylvania join them in protecting the residents of Pennsylvania who are out on our roadways. Thank you so much for Representative Brown's efforts and leadership on this. I look forward to helping get this across the finish line. Take care.
Representative Jim Struzzi.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm here today to support House Bill 37 because I believe that no one should ever be injured or killed on our Pennsylvania highways. As a former PennDOT press secretary and safety press officer before I became a state representative, I understand the statistics and I understand what it means when people look away from the roadway as they're driving. As a father of four, I'm deeply concerned that this bill needs to pass to make sure that we put enough teeth behind law enforcement to force people to not drive distracted. When I was with PennDOT, we didn't call them accidents, we called them crashes, because every crash is preventable. Distracted driving ends with behavior and it ends with enforcement. So therefore, I'm here today to support this bill because I believe everyone should be safe every time they take one of Pennsylvania's highways. Thank you.
I'm Representative Ryan Warner. I want to thank Representative Brown for introducing this very important legislation. So, if you think about it, in our state and any other state in the country, we don't allow people to drive impaired under using alcohol because it's dangerous. The studies show that texting, using your phone while driving, is just as not more dangerous than using alcohol while driving. So to me, this is very common sense legislation. And I'll be one of the first ones to admit I've used my phone while driving. I've almost been in an accident because of it. I'm not scared to admit that. But anyone that has used their phone knows how distracted you are where you're going down the road. How many times have you swerved back over from the center lane? How many close calls have you had? But I know one thing, on a trip to DC, while traveling through Maryland, as soon as you entered the state, I saw the big signs, no cell phone use. You know what I did? I put my cell phone away for the whole trip down there. Did not bring it out once. It was actually nice. So I'm not too humble to say that I've used my phone while driving. I know firsthand how dangerous it is. It's very important that we get this law passed to save lives. We do not allow people in this state to drive impaired because it is dangerous. We should not allow them to use cell phones while they're driving because it is dangerous. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Warner, for your honesty as well. Senator Scavello, would you like to say a few words? Putting him on the spot.
Good morning. I'm here in support of the bill. I serve on the Transportation Committee in the Senate, and I'm going to do my part to get the bill to move once it gets to the Senate. And I applaud Representative Brown. I know this is right on the top of her wish list to get accomplished this term, and I'm hopeful that it will. And to all the families that lost a loved one, we're sorry. We should have done this bill already, and we need to continue to move forward because it can this can happen again in our communities, and without this bill, it can, and we must not make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you to all my colleagues, and I know there's many other legislators who do support this legislation, and as you know, the schedule in the Capitol is very busy, so you may see some of the legislators coming and going behind me because of other meetings, so I thank them all for their support and their comments this morning. And just as a side note, I know Secretary Richards, the Secretary of Transportation, wanted to be here today. We do have some members of her team here to be with us, so thank you very much. Next on the list is a family that I believe has just become very good friends with me. The Miller family, Eileen and Paul Miller, to my right, and have been fierce advocates of helping me throughout the Capitol gain awareness and education and knowledge on their situation, but also on the issue of distracted driving with cell phones. And I'd like to invite Eileen Miller up to tell her story.
Thank you, everybody. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody behind me for their leadership, especially Representative Rosemary Brown, who has, like I said, become a wonderful friend and a great person to me. I met, actually, Representative Rosemary Brown and actually Senator Mario through the Safe 80 Task Force in Monroe County right after my son had passed away. My son's, Paul here, was tragically killed in Monroe County, where they both are representatives, on July 5th of 2010 by a grossly negligent, semi-distracted truck driver. My son was in the criminal justice program at East Stroudsburg University, and my son on the 4th went to a party at friends from ESU. My son walked in the door at 3 o'clock and said, "Mom, I'm going to a party. I'm going to go visit friends at ESU." And my son gave me a kiss and a hug and walked in the door at 3 o'clock, gave me a kiss and a hug, and I never knew that that would be the last kiss and hug I would ever receive from my son. My son was in the criminal justice program at ESU. He went to visit friends and walked out the door, and that was it. My son did everything right. My son went, he visited friends, he stayed at a party, and my son did everything right. On the way back, on the 5th of July, my son was coming back to visit, to go to work at Garrity's Supermarket, and my son was coming north, and a semi-truck driver was going south for miles. People saw him off the road, on the road, lane switching. That tractor trailer actually was seen swerving, lane switching, and he overcorrected, and he hit my son head on, going 69 in a 45-mile work zone while he was reaching for that cell phone. And you never want to have 2 state troopers come up and knock on your door and tell you that your loved one was killed due to something so preventable. And that's what it was. It was a very preventable crash. And I had to go to the morgue, and I literally had to unzip the body bag of my son, and you never want to have to do that. I couldn't even recognize his body. I literally had to unzip the body bag to look at the clothes that he was wearing from when he walked out the door at 3 o'clock in the morning the day before. So when I did that, I actually whispered in his ear that I would find out what had happened to him, and I would fight for change. And that's what I've been doing since 2010, is fighting for better laws, fighting for safety and better roads on our highways. And that's when I met with Representative Mario, which is now a senator, and Representative Rosemary Brown. And I kept saying, one of these days we're going to get a hands-held bill. And I want to say this, hands-free is not risk-free. You should turn all the technology off, but it's a step in the right direction in getting safer laws on our highways. And a year after that, my husband started tripping and falling and walking into the walls, and my husband was diagnosed with ALS, which is known as amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. So it's the after effects of when you lose a child and your loved ones, and all of these will tell you it's not very easy when you lose a child or a loved one due to something so preventable. And almost 3 years ago, our new handicap van that we got, we were hit again on Route 80 by another distracted driver. So it's not a matter of if it's going to happen to you, it's a matter of when it's going to happen to you. Everybody behind, when they're driving their vehicle, should get to point A to point B and just simply drive and turn all that technology off. So I'm very grateful to everybody behind me who is supporting this bill. And like they said, we need to get this out of transportation. We need to get this to the House and to the Senate and get it to the governor's desk and to make this the law of the land for Pennsylvania. Thank you kindly, and please be safe on our roads.
Our next speaker is Mark Brzezinski.
Thank you for letting us be here today, and we're honored. We don't want to be here or be qualified to be on stage, but we're honored to be here, and we hope that everybody's listening strongly to what we have to say. Our story is in St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, 2011, at the old Bishop McDevitt High School. My 8th grade daughter and 6th grade daughter at the time were doing a band concert, and after the band concert, to celebrate everything, going to head out to McDonald's to have a Shamrock Shake. And it ended up on the way out of the concert to go to the car across the street. 17-year-old girl and her friend, God knows what they were doing on their cell phone, but were totally distracted, blew past hundreds of other people that were leaving the concert, and ended up with my family in the crosswalk. Ended up that missed my 2 daughters and my wife by inches, and ended up struck and kill Owen. I was going to make, no, get out of here. Get. I got this. All right. Thank you, though. But from the standpoint of that, you know, just looking at it today would have been, he would have been in his sophomore year at Bishop McDevitt High School. And to think that we don't have our sons or daughters, and what we have pictures of them today, you know, to come up and say, hey, we need to do something because of this. Our kids are gone. You know, our lives are so different because of something that can easily been taken care of. You know, and what we're here today is to bring passion for that. So what the bill is about, you know, it's about these lives. You know, we do not want anybody else to qualify or be qualified to be on the stage. We don't want anybody else to be in this club. And it's not just the young kids, it's older too. We want you to put down this phone, and this bill itself will help do this. This bill will save lives. So I challenge all of you today, you know, I'm going to go over my 2 minutes, you know that. It's okay, I'll be all right. All right, so this is what this is about, saving lives, all right? And there's no reason to not to. It's not a Democratic, Republican thing. It's about saving lives. And it's interesting we get here because the foundation, we call it Owen's Foundation, Orange for Owen, and it's about the big old O for my son. So we get down there, if everybody turns around and looks on that wall, there's an O. You see that? That's my boy out here saying today, this is what it's about. You know, it's about legislation that's going to save lives. So I challenge each and every one that are thinking about this bill or don't want to do it, think about these pictures of our sons, our daughters, and what this did. This can literally save lives. And I challenge all of you, if there's any questions, you're having debates, I'll come. Oh, dudes, I'll come, you know, and I'll sit there and talk to everybody. But please, do what you need to do, you know, and I'm blessed to know all these new friends, family, but pass this bill and what this is going to do and save lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And I know it's very, very difficult for all of us to hear those stories, but then also for all the families to be here. So I thank them, but it really does show you the need and why we do certain legislation. You don't do legislation just to do legislation, you do legislation to fix a problem. And as Mark said, this is to save lives, innocent lives, not people who are actually the ones being distracted, but innocent lives. So thank you, Mark and Eileen and all the other families that are here. Our last speaker is from AAA, Ted Leonard, the Executive Director.
All right, thank you. Well, thank you, Representative Brown, for the opportunity to speak briefly on the safety issue of distracted driving. As Representative Brown said, my name is Ted Leonard. I'm the Executive Director of the Pennsylvania AAA Federation, which is the state association of the AAA clubs in Pennsylvania, representing 3.2 million member motorists. Today, obviously, is the last day of April, which has been designated nationally as Distracted Driving Awareness Month. However, our awareness of distracted driving should continue for 365 days a year. In fact, every time we get behind the wheel, we should be aware of distracted driving. According to surveys by the AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety, distracted driving tops drivers' lists of growing concerns and dangers on the road. Their annual Traffic Safety Culture Index shows that 88% of drivers believe that distracted driving is on the rise, topping other risky behaviors like aggressive driving, drug driving, drunk driving, and so forth. The proportion of drivers who talk regularly on a cell phone when behind the wheel has jumped 46% since 2013. Nearly half of drivers report recently talking on a handheld cell phone while driving, and 35% have sent an email message or text message. Despite their behavior, 58% of the drivers say talking on a cell phone behind the wheel is a serious threat to their personal safety, while 78% believe that texting is a significant danger. Drivers talking on a cell phone are 4 times likely to be involved in a crash, and those who are texting are 8 times likely to be involved in a crash. A AAA Foundation study found that after a driver has finished making a call, tuning a radio, or composing a text, that distraction can last for an additional 27 seconds. And at 25 miles an hour, Drivers traveled the length of nearly 3 football fields in that 27 seconds. During this time, motorists could miss stop signs, pedestrians, or other vehicles, while the mind is readjusting to the task of driving. Distracted driving not only increases the risk of getting in a crash, it increases the severity of a crash. We have a saying that goes, "You wouldn't drive intoxicated, so don't drive intoxicated." That call or text can wait. Thank you, Representative Brown, for your introduction of House Bill 37 and for your commitment to improve safety for the motoring public. And thank you for the chairs of the House Transportation Committee have shown up today, and members of the House Transportation Committee that have shown their support to this very important legislation. Thank you. Oh, killed your pen.
No worries, thank you. Thank you, Ted, very much. This does conclude today's press conference. I'd like to thank all of the legislators, all of our speakers today. I know it was difficult, but their commitment to help make our roads safer in Pennsylvania. I'd like to thank the families again for being here. It is always extremely difficult. Jody Bales, Mark Brzezinski, Kayleen Raimondo, okay, I have it right. And Eileen and Paul Miller, your work towards improving the safety for others does not go unnoticed. And I know you've been through tragedy, so I thank you for trying to improve our society. Thank you. Lastly, I do want to say, Eileen, I believe, said this, really the best use of your cell phone is no use when you're driving. But again, I'm going back to my comments at the beginning, which is I'm trying to be realistic, I'm trying to be reasonable, and I'm trying to make sure this is enforceable. And I think this is what we can get accomplished that will make a difference. But again, I still encourage everyone who's watching this to put down the cell phone, myself included. As Representative Warner said, I think we're all guilty and we all take advantage of the technology, and our busy lifestyles don't make it any easier. But I do encourage that, and like I said, I think this is a good piece of legislation that we can get through the finish line that will really make Pennsylvania, hopefully the 18th state to have laws that help protect our drivers. Lastly, too, I do want to say that we have Sarah Stewart and the Vision O group here for Families for Safe Streets. So I want to say thank you for being here today. Thank you. And I also want to give, thank you. I want to thank Dave Kerr and his team from AT&T. So we talked, Ted from AAA mentioned about you wouldn't drive intoxicated. Why would you drive texting and distracted? AT&T has a slogan, #ItCanWait. But they have 3 scenarios over here at a table where you can do a simulator. There's some more education pieces and some really neat technology to help you really understand what happens when you drive distracted. So that's over here. But Dave, I'm going to give Dave just a couple seconds up here to finish up our press conference, but I thank them for their commitment and for being here today. So please experience that if you haven't yet. Thank you, Dave.
Just briefly, again, I commend the legislators for dealing with this important public policy issue and the families. I've heard these stories a couple times and I still get chills. But let's be realistic here. Those are important steps, but what can we all do? We can all be advocates. Go to itcanwait.com. Take a moment, join us over here so you can go through a virtual reality simulator. But please, go to the website. You can be an advocate yourself. You can learn what you can do, and it's going to take everybody. It's going to take public policy. It's going to take, unfortunately, very tragic stories, but we should all do what we can ourselves as advocates. So thank you. Please join us.
Thank you, everyone, again. And since we are pretty much getting ready to get on the floor at 11 o'clock, I will be here for the press for some additional questions and comments that you might want from me. But I thank again everyone for being here, and God bless our families. And we wish you the strength and love from us as legislators. So thank you so much, everyone.